What's up, everybody? Welcome to another great episode of Rugby Swag. My name is GiftTime Bailu, and this is the show where we talk about all things rugby, from the opportunities that are provided and the people that had taken advantage of them, to the news that changes the way that you get to see, watch, or experience the game itself.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. You are now tuned in to the greatest of all time, the greatest of all time.
Welcome to the Rugby Swag Show.
Y'all, we have a great episode today, and of course, I always have to tell you right out the bat, if you do enjoy it, please like and subscribe on YouTube. Definitely follow us on our audio platforms, but most importantly, if you can, leave a comment or a review and let us know how you feel, because I really enjoy being able to hear and talk to the rest of you and finding out what you think, because you guys think amazingly. So thank you so much for all that you guys do. Of course, if you're just listening to it on the audio platform, absolutely check us out at Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Google Play, and any major audio platform that you guys listen to will probably be on there. And of course, if you guys are not just doing that, please go ahead and check us out over on our social medias, Rugby Swag Show, on Instagram, at GiftTime Rugby on Facebook, TikTok, and Twitch, and then of course at GiftAbelu, GiftEgbelu on X. And so you guys absolutely join the conversation, enjoy what we put through, and of course want to be able to know that you are just beloved. I like you. You know, today it's a bit of a rainy day, but it is not a rainy day for the conversation that we're about to have with our special guest for today. The man is coming out from Great American Rugby. You guys have probably heard about him, of course. And I'm going to let that intro do more, but we got Lance Cavanaugh on the podcast. He has been absolutely killing it in the media game, and I want to say that this was worth it. Now, you guys are probably looking at the time length. It's okay. It's worth the listen. Definitely to listen to the history and really getting the fullness of what it takes to get from point A to point B when it comes in this rugby game, and the many pathways that we do. So sit back, enjoy. If you got a good long car ride, go hit it. If you got time while you're in the office, go check it out. If you're in class and you're trying to study, definitely go take a listen. You got time. It's going to be worth it. And I absolutely enjoyed this conversation thoroughly. Again, told you, we're going to keep trying to get these convos in, trying to make these things work more and more, and this was one of them. So thank you so much for being able to listen. Thank you so much for taking the time, and of course, I am looking forward to seeing what you guys feel on it. So without further ado, definitely check out our main sponsor, Health Enhanced Foods. Definitely check them out. Absolutely 20% off our product, Rugby Swag. And this is for anybody who is looking to be able to eat their breads better, because I know, especially in rugby, we need to make sure our carbs are up, because that's energy. But more importantly, we want to make sure we're eating the right carbs, because this bleached out meat that they're providing us in our breads is terrible for us and hurts our production. And from a standpoint, from attention, from your focus, you need the best grains and the best products to be able to put into your bread. Health Enhanced Food is there for it. So check this out. We're going to be right back with Lance Cavanaugh. I'm going to let you get back to the show in a moment, but I want to talk to you about our sponsors, Health Enhanced Foods, the best specialty flours in the business. What does that mean for you? That is the flours that allow you to be able to get the nutritious need from your bread made. That's muffins, bread, croissants, whatever, pancakes and muffins. It will give you the opportunity to be able to get the best while still being able to eat like you wanted to. We have various amounts of products available for those who have special dietary needs, to those who are looking for a special health outcome. And of course, because they're part of the Rugby Swag Show, we want to let you know that you got a chance to go to healthenhancedfoods.com and use code Rugby Swag to be able to get 20% off your first order. Y'all, this is something that you're going to need. You got to build up, have your energy at the best, be the maximum. It's 2024. Let's do the best. But now I want you guys to get into it. Let's get back to the show.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another great episode of Rugby Swag. Y'all, we got a special guest for you today. This man is a four-time national champion. This man is a rugby league champion. This man has one of the hottest media platforms in rugby today. He is the commentator of not just the black people, not just the Florida people, but my brothers, he is there for the club rugby people, doing it for it. I got Lance Cavanaugh of Great American Rugby. Lance, man, thank you so much for coming on to the show today.
I appreciate that introduction. I wasn't expecting. Okay, all right, let's do this. Let's do this. Yeah, I did all of that. No.
Let's go.
Let's go. Let's go.
Let's do this. Bro, Lance, I thank you so much for coming on to the show. Look, we were talking a little bit before, but because it's on the screen now, I have to say, I've been a fan, especially since 2017, whenever you started really picking up on social media, I think heavily. I think we really kicked off 2020. I think the BIPOC group really started to be popping around from there. But I'd seen your stuff beforehand, just randomly, because black rugby players in the U.S.
Yeah, that'll do it. That'll do it.
And so, you know, what you've been able to do as of recently, especially as a person who's been in rugby media, I am so appreciative and I am so elated by what you've done. You've brought the energy that I've always believed that people need to be able to feel. You have brought the swag to rugby in a fly manner. And you've managed to represent Florida in a way that we go, all right, maybe that's not just Florida man over there.
I'm an import, though. I'm an import to Florida.
I know. That's what makes it incredible. Yeah. That's what makes it wild. But you know what? That being said, look, like you've been able to create like this realm where I think you've now brought, especially with club rugby, and brought more people who definitely would not have been seen by other media sites now bringing their voice up. And I think that is a huge significant element to creating the story of American rugby. So much kudos, much flowers over to you on all of that, bro.
I appreciate it, man. It's important. The thing is one of those what I was missing when I was playing kind of things, right? So imagine being at a place like Old Blue, right? And if you think of Old Blue, when I was there, we're talking about multi-Eagles, players from all over the world, guys that are showing up now that you get to see. Like, you know, I was teammates with like Nate. And he was like MLR back of the year, and he you know what I mean, or you know, you think of like Roots, and I'm teammates with KG, and you know that's when I meet his wife, and I meet them, and I meet the whole culture and community, and it's like at the time that I was at Old Blue, just specifically Old Blue, it wasn't anybody really like talking about who these people were, and as I get away from the game, you're done playing. Like, what do you do? What's your input? How do you add to what rugby is? You know, I mean, if I'm not on the field giving blood, sweat, and tears, I might as well be on the sideline giving love and cheers. So that it kind of came one of those things where I'm just happy to talk about the people that show me love and show the game love, really.
No, that's real. And, you know, honestly, it is one of those things where that story gets so lost. And I remember even for me, whenever I started doing it for technically 2013 was when I started kicking off doing rugby media. The Louisiana and the South was the area where I was like, bro, there's nobody having a voice for it. At the time, you had Rugby Mag, and it was literally New York, the Midwest, and California area, the West Coast. And nobody looked at the Southeast outside of Life University. So it was like, okay, how do we at least be able to bring this up? Because how do we have talent for football, but you're going to say that there's nothing to watch in rugby over here? Like, y'all tripping. Y'all are tripping.
Especially like the South, especially at that time. I mean, we talking about, think of like, you remember they used to have the all-star teams? They brought them back. NCR brought them back, but they used to have like the Midwest Thunderbirds and all these. The South team was like the most dangerous team.
Yep,
it was
Deep South not Deep South All-Stars. It was Panthers.
These teams were dangerous, and I didn't know much about the South until I moved down there. So I'm part of that Midwestern group that's kind of isolated, good enough to really make an impact, good enough to be like, all right, this is good rugby there, but nobody really showcasing or showing what's really going on. And even back then, I was trying to start something to this effect around 2010. You know, things got in the way of it, but to be able to now be able to reach people in Cali and Florida and up north and in the South and it's beautiful. It's beautiful how everything just kind of evolved and play itself out.
Man, that's legit. Well, look, I always say, I every superhero has their origin story, and for you, and I hope you're ready for this, my brother. But my Lance, man, how did you get started in rugby?
How did I get started in rugby? Well, I guess it would go back to football. Play football in high school, and when it was over, I love football. Like I love like the action football. You can miss me with NFL, XFL, college, or whatever. Just like the sport, the activity of football. Yeah, I love football. Right. So I graduate. No prospects of playing in college. Unless I go D3 or something like that. Only had 1 year tape really to really show what I can do. So at that point, football is pretty much over, right? But I still love it. I'm still trying to figure out a way to make it happen. I was contemplating semi-pro and all kind of stuff, and I end up going to Chicago. Yeah, this whole origin story of rugby started in Chicago, right? I go to Chicago with a family friend. Shout out to Sharita, and I'm in the house by myself. And at this time, 2007. Home internet happens. People got home internet, but it's not so upwardly abundant like it is now. And I'm on the internet and I'm in this empty house, in a different state than I live. And I'm just basically looking up football highlights. I'm just trying to watch some football highlights. Barry Sanders, the kind of things I love to watch. Ed Reed, all these players.
Bro, same.
Right?
Same.
Right? I'm basically watching all these players I admire. And in this highlight, they snuck in a rugby highlight. Now, I knew what rugby was because it used to come on like Fox Sport 2 when I was like super young, like 11, 12. And, back then it was like a grueling style of rugby. So it didn't really appeal to me in the same sense, right? It showed some hits, showed some people playing. I started looking at jerseys like, okay, who's the All Blacks? Who are the All Blacks? I type in All Blacks rugby, you get New Zealand, and I end up coming across Joe Rakafoku highlights. Now, this is when he was like at the peak of his powers, or just getting out of being super deep in a World Cup rotation. He was like the man on his way out kind of thing. And I was like infatuated with Joe Rakafoku. I don't know how I even said his name right then or right now, but that was another part of it too. This different culture, right? There's people on the other side of the world are playing a game that they've been playing their whole life, and I've only seen it in two 30-second clips of my entire life. I'm watching rugby highlights for like hours after this. I end up just realizing like, well, maybe they got it in America. Rugby in America, I find out it's a bunch of clubs. I put in my hometown, Toledo, Ohio. Toledo, Ohio rugby. Toledo Celtics popped up. I think I was watching those highlights on a Thursday night. Sunday, I was at practice. Made a phone call to the team president and was like, hey, I'm coming to practice. And that was it.
So about what year was that? So that was like 2008 by that point? 2007.
Yeah, this whole thing happened July 2007.
Oh, man. Yo, that's dope. No, it's so funny because a lot of my journey into it had been very, very similar in that. Except for obviously one, it was 2 years after. But I started off in football, as most of us do, and had wanted to play at USF. I tried to try out, didn't do that. Thought about going to arena football. Didn't end up working out for that one either. So by the time I'd come around to football, to rugby, I had it at like USF they had it at USF South Florida, and the coach let us do a practice, but at the time it wasn't clicking the same thing for me. And just held it in the back. Like I had, I think, what do you call it? One of my dorm mates had told me about it. So then when I graduated come 09, like it's one of those things where it's like the seeds were planted, but it needed to sprout, and saw it on NBC. And I think I saw it was Rugby Sevens, and it was just like, oh, can juke? Oh, these guys aren't juking. If you just juke, like they'll be able to blast off. Like, why aren't they doing nothing? I was like, I can do this. Look it up. We find it on the city, and for me, it's Baton Rouge. So, like Baton Rouge, I never feel like it has anything, but all of a sudden, oh, they have a rugby team. They got a club. Okay, cool. Never seen them. They probably aren't even existing. Happen to go out there and do it, but it's just really interesting where that segment comes, especially whenever you've played football. I don't want to say maybe necessarily at a high level, but at an exciting enough level where you enjoyed it at that high school level and you did damage, right?
I mean, in a football sense, I was underutilized and underrespected. It's pretty tough being a late bloomer, right? Being an undersized late bloomer, not really that fast at the time, right? Everybody else getting their man strength and speed, and I was kind of late to the party with that. So by the time I was able to like physically run with everybody, I was able to compete with them when I was lesser of an athlete. Then I started growing to myself by my senior year. And now I'm one of the players that the team depends on. So I go from holding field goals and long snapping my junior year on kickoff, kick return, punt return, every special teams, but no offense, no defense, not a second, right? No time at all, just all special teams.
Yeah.
To my senior year being the guy that led the team in all turnover categories, and we had the best defense in the area, right? So that was one of those things where it's like, you know, I bite bigger than people give me respect for. People actually, you know, give me love for. And, you know, when I go back home, people remember I could play, but it was one of those things where like, unless you really seen the development, it wasn't something people took respect to or gasp at. So now that I'm doing this rugby thing, now people are like taking that bit and this, you know, what I've done in my adult life are like, all right, you know, me kind of thing, especially back home. But it was tough sledding as a football guy in Toledo, especially because at that time the game was so predicated on fast speed. That was when football was taking its turn towards the spread offenses.
Right.
So it was all about speed. I'm 145 pounds trying to play safety, right? My junior year, like nobody cares. Nobody, like, you're not getting in kind of thing. And I gained about, you know, I got to like 160, you know, 165-ish my senior year. And they didn't really have a choice. Like my high school team didn't have a choice but to play me. You know what I'm saying? Everybody, it was like people getting hurt, all this other stuff that was happening. And then once I got in the game, it was like, oh, okay. All right. Then I'm, you know, at that point, I'm leading, you know, I'm calling the cadence for the defense, making adjustments. I'm doing all this other stuff. By the time that, you know, my senior year ended, like, it was one of those things, like, I really had to, like, grab and grind and grow to play football. So by the time I got into rugby, I kind of took that underdog spirit. And, I mean, it just took me a ways, man. Took me far.
You spoke on something, and I'm just bring it back. You spoke on the fact that you had gone out to Chicago to give football and all a try. From where you are with your family, are you guys a family of athletes, or was it just like you, or what was the base?
Well, no, it was I didn't go to try football. I just went to get out of Toledo, Ohio for, you know, 3-4 days. So I went with a family friend to her hometown just to hang out. You know what I mean? It was just one of those things like, yeah, I'll come with you. I'll watch your son, hang out. You know, shout out to Donovan. He's grown now. That's crazy, right? It's crazy, right?
Time goes fast, bro. That time goes fast.
It moves, dog. But as far as athletes, I'm the youngest of 3. I have an older brother, older sister. My sister wasn't really much of an athlete. My brother was a basketball player. He ended up spending time playing at like Morgan State when he was in college, and after he got out the military. So I've always been coached by him. So like I didn't necessarily have, you know, like, you know, my father was, you know, some football guy in my hometown, like, you know, running back at his high school kind of thing. Like he was the man in his, you know, his time a little bit. And between there, it wasn't really much. Like as far as my extended family, I'm the athlete of the family, like literally in that real sense. My brother just was my coach from the very beginning. I remember my brother teaching me how to catch when I was like 6.
Yo,
he got 5 years on me. So teaching me how to catch when I was 6, to teaching me to run routes afterwards, to teaching me how to tackle when I was in high school, to like, my brother is my first coach. So I didn't necessarily have athletes in the family, but I had the best coach I probably could ever have.
Man, it sounds like you had a lot of support, which is freaking beautiful. Yeah, that's absolutely beautiful.
Still to this day, my brother is one of my biggest fans, so I love my brother.
Oh man, I love that. So whenever you were in Chicago, you said, you know, what was that experience going into it like, especially trying to get out? Because we all have our first moments of like separating out from the house, like especially Toledo to Chicago is what, 5 hours,
Nah,
something like that,
like 3 and some change.
3 and some change.
Yeah, well, it was just for that was listen, that was only for a short time, like a week.
Okay.
Like I only went to hang out, right? I didn't leave the house. I didn't leave Ohio for the first time until I went to Davenport University, which was in like 2010. That's when I left.
Okay.
I graduated high school 06, was still in the hometown, hanging out, playing rugby, adjusting, learning the game, and some crazy stuff happened that got me a chance to get a scholarship, and that was pretty much how this whole thing really kicked off.
Where was that first moment whenever you were playing with the club team in Toledo where you were just like, bro, rugby clicked for you? Like rugby, this is it for me.
It's 2 moments, right? So first, shout out to the Toledo Celtics, right? I got a lot of love for Toledo Celtics. They're my guys, right? The first moment happened in a tackling. We had we played like 10s on 10s in like a little confined space, and I got tackled, brought to the ground, and when I was going down, somebody like kicked me in the shin, right? And at this point, that was like the most pain I had ever felt playing sports ever, dog. Like it was for a second, I'm like, man, I might have broke my leg. Like it was like it like a pain just shot up my whole body. Like it was crazy.
Is that one that has that like ripple effect kind of pain
oh my God, it was excruciating, right? And this is just a practice, and I just basically just got kicked. So I'm kind of on the ground, like rubbing my leg, looking like Peter Griffin, like right, rubbing my leg. I'm like, man, something wrong, right? And I'm like debating with myself, like, is this rugby? Like, I played football, you know what I mean, as a kid, street football. I've never felt a shin contact like this, right? So I'm debating with myself, like, is this rugby? This is crazy. I get up and I'll drag myself through the rest of tackling or whatever. And when it was all said and done and it was over, you know what I'm saying, on my way home, the pain subsided. And I was like, and in my mind, at least, and maybe this is a twisted way to look at it, but in my mind, I was like, I took the worst rugby can give me. Like, I took the worst of all, and maybe, I'm a sicko for that, but that was a moment I was like, all right, it already gave me a bad little bit of whatever, and I'm still here. And then the second one was my first game.
Yeah. My
first game, we go to, it's a preseason tournament. They play 10s in Ohio. And I end up sitting the bench like first half of the first game. This is my first time playing. I barely know the rules, right? It's one of those things where it's like, if somebody get penalized and the ref hold his arm up, I don't know to get back 10 or to go quick or nothing. I just look at my team and like, what y'all doing? Are we backing up? Are we backing up? It was kind of one of those things. So they put me in and they put me at the wing. And in 10s, the wing got to do a lot of like protecting the back, a lot of sweeping.
Right.
And, they kick the ball. And, in football, if they kick the ball, you can return it. I know that's true now. So I like sprint back. I beat everybody to the ball, right? And I like pick it up. And then from there, I just went to go mode. First time I touched the ball, I go 80 meters and score.
God, dog.
Break the line, do a move on like 2 dudes. And I'm running from the middle of the field and I'm going to the sideline. Football, right? I'm veering to the sideline, making sure I know everybody who
hit the hash marks.
Middle. They all screaming, go to the middle, right? They all yelling. And it was just like, it was one of those moments where it's like, all right, my first time ever touching the ball in a rugby game. Nobody passed me the ball. The ball was given to our team, and I took it the whole way. I can do this. Now, mind you, that gave me that set a really bad precedence that every time I touch the ball, I can score, right? But at least from the moment I picked the ball up the very first time, I knew like, okay, I fit right in. I'm good. Here. And, since then, the development really, once I really started developing, and by the time I had ended up going to Davenport, which was in 2010, I had such a love for the game. I had such a appreciation for it. And that was just on the sense of picking up a ball and playing. I've yet to learn like the real strategies, the reason teams do certain things. At that point, it was just watching highlights and just run. Every time I get the ball, I'm trying to score. That was pretty much it. And I even like when I think about like who I was as a player then and now, like it's embarrassing. Like if I watch film of me back then, I'd be embarrassed. But one thing I can always like, take solace in or like really be cool with is that like I was really having fun when I played for Toledo. Like I was
Word.
really having fun. I was asking for responsibilities and was getting them. I was, we was making play. They were designing plays and putting things in motion for me. And they like made it so like I can be involved. And then they did something that is the reason why I kind of want to make Great American Rugby bigger is they made it easy for me to play as some kid fresh out of high school. You know what I mean?
Right.
They took care of my SIP the first year, transportation that we had to go to places throughout Ohio and throughout the Midwest. They took care of it. They took care of me. Like Toledo took care of me. And
Nice.
And for that, I'm always feeling indebted.
No, I think that's so important. One of those things whenever we're in that early stages is whenever you need something that actually like grasp you. I've always said like the easiest part has always been what happens on the pitch. Like, whether you get your big hit, whether you get your catch, whether you get your score. I think regardless of whatever sport you start from, rugby, that one, it was always the easy attachment. What happens off the field is whenever I think it sinks into your heart as just a part of your maybe identity might be the wrong word, but it becomes personified in a sense for you. Because like I know for me, I knew I wanted to play competitively after practicing with the guys and then playing my first game. But that was the competitive side, go for any sport.
Yeah.
But I know I started like actually loving rugby and rugby culture after I went to the social pitch tent in Georgia, where where I was like, yo, wait, I can be in college without being in college again. And this like combine all the rugby people from around the area, then add to that the travel of being able to take me to places where honestly, had I not played rugby, I never would have gone to them. Like just I never would have had a reason to go to any of these places. So it added that little component to it. And those combined to be like a complete rugby appreciation as opposed to these little superficial elements that hold you, but it's the same reason why people play flag football forever and a day. I got to be competitive, but outside of that,
I understand that. So as far as like when I first started, the socials weren't necessarily like cool, like great places to be at, right? Because then
Right.
My teammates see me 3 times a week for 3 months. They know me pretty well. Lance enjoy life, he excitable, happy go lucky. But you get an old boy that see a random black guy, and I'm a black spot in a speck of white. You know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
you get these old boys that might act goofy. So some of the more social events when I first started weren't necessarily the greatest, or
Ooh.
out, not on some stuff where I'm like, back in time. They, it wasn't nothing crazy like that. It was just like you can see where you're other. You can see where you're other, but
the vibe wasn't connecting.
The
in
vibe
terms
wasn't
of,
vibing
yeah.
fully on, right? For a few of them, right? I think a lot of it changed when I started bringing friends to the team. A
Yeah.
lot of it changed as the team kind of, like the old boy after year 2 can't treat me like some new guy, right? After the first year can't treat me like a new guy, right? And at this point I know who to avoid, who to talk to, who, you know what I'm saying, who, this kind of thing. So the social element of it got really cool for like away tournaments, got really cool for the off-season stuff. But in the beginning, it was just, that was the culture shock. That was the figuring out that rugby is just a tad bit different than other sports. And you live and you learn. I definitely learned how to navigate in a certain sense, but I don't necessarily come from, I want to make sure I say this right. I don't come from white crowds. Like I grew up in the inner city of a town that's, 80% black inner city. My elementary, junior high, high school were 75+% black people. My high school was like 99.8% black, right?
Word.
So I'm dealing in a situation where, I'm being
This is new all the way.
Yeah, it's like a lot of it is just completely brand new, right? It definitely is a wake-up call when you get to learn different cultures, different people, where they come from. And to be honest, that is actually the beauty of rugby. You know what I mean? And one thing you hit on is going to these different places that you never would go. The first tournament that I went to was in a place called Bucyrus. I haven't been there since, right? If I ain't going to that tournament, I'm not going to no Bucyrus, right? Or just these random towns in Ohio. I don't have a reason to go to Dayton, Findlay. I don't have a reason to go to certain parts of Cleveland, but you know, some of my best memories are in Detroit,
those areas,
in these places that I wouldn't, you know what I mean? So that's another thing about rugby too, is that somebody like, yeah, they'd be like, yeah, I'm from Flint. And you'd be like, yeah, I remember I played them and got a hat trick. Yeah, Flint. You know what I mean? So yeah.
No, that's facts. Like I know. Look, I always say, like, again, I use pitcher tent as an example. There's no way in God's green earth that, number one, I would ever be in Lafayette, Georgia. Number two, that I would even have heard about Lafayette, Georgia. From Louisiana, where I'm used to Lafayette, I'm getting Lafayette. Like,
yeah, rugby is rugby, man. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. It has its flaws, but it's beautiful.
No, facts. So, okay. So, obviously continuing, you have these 3 years that you're with Toledo, you're learning, you've gotten your looks, and I'm assuming you're starting to create tape. And this school in Michigan out of nowhere starts like looking at you. Like, how did you get connected with Davenport, which is another school that without rugby never would have known existed?
Dude, all right, so that's another thing, right? So at this point, after my first year, I taught one of my high school teammates that I wrestled with and played football with to join the rugby team. And to us, like at this time in our lives, we were like these super ultra competitive dudes that were just looking for a reason to compete, right? It was at one point in time, like Friday was like intramural basketball at the community college we was going to. And then Saturday was a rugby day and we go play rugby. And then Sunday we would go play flag football. And we would do this every weekend in combination with playing basketball throughout the week, right? And me and homeboy, I'm gonna say his name in a bit, but me and homeboys are like, we just competing, man. It's my dog. We figuring it out, we going at it, whatever. And as we spend more time playing rugby, I already had a love and appreciation for it. And he loved to dominate, and he was dominating in rugby. So it's like, I'm gonna play rugby, right?
We keep doing it, yeah.
Right. We gonna do this, right? You know what I mean? We going to practices, we actually locking into it, right? We end up playing against a team, Grand Rapids, during the course of me playing for Toledo. Grand Rapids is in our division. And we end up having a really good game. I ended up having a really good game against Grand Rapids. My homeboy was having good games in general, right? He wasn't scoring a bunch, but he was having good games, right?
He was making the impact and changing the way that people had to deal with defend and play.
They had to deal with him, right? They had to deal with him. So eventually what happened was the head coach or the coach of Toledo was like, look, there's a school in Grand Rapids, Michigan. They just finished their first year. And I know the head coach. They doing this giant recruitment boom. They trying to bring in like 40 student athletes. There's a possibility for you to get a scholarship. And if that's something you want to do, like let me know. And from the moment he said it, I'm like, let's do it. Let's do it.
It's like, bet
right now, right? Because I was already working to get back into school. I was, if you know anything about Ohio geography, Northwest Ohio is Toledo, and about 30 minutes south is Bowling Green, right? And my clan, my crew would always go to Bowling Green. That was like our little getaway. We wouldn't party in Toledo. Toledo had his own like party scene that we didn't really fit in with, right?
Wait, I was about to say, isn't University of Toledo or Toledo University existing right there?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up like, less than a 10-minute drive from Toledo University, right? It's not even that, like 6 minutes, right? 4 with no traffic. It's like it ain't even that far away, right? And we didn't really mix in. One thing about Toledo, and I don't know if you know one thing about Toledo in general, the Toledo University didn't necessarily recruit players inside of Toledo. So Toledo, it's one of those things where they like, we've learned from recruit people from inside of the city. They too mixed in with their life beforehand. It interferes with what we want from college, our student athletes, right? It was definitely back then, it was more about controlling student athletes in general. So they didn't necessarily recruit inside the city. So it wasn't like we had a homeboy that was playing on the football team, or we had a reason to really be around the college environment in Toledo.
Right.
Let's just go ahead and go 20 minutes south. Nobody, like, it ain't nobody knows us because we had more people that went to BG out of high school than not. So we going to see our homeboy, you know, the DN, and, you know, I played with in football my senior year, go to BG, or, you know, classmates, right? So we kicking it in BG, and I'm like, all right, well, BG got a rugby team. Toledo can't beat them. They beating us all the time. I'm like, I'm going to try to play for BG. Try to talk to the coach. He don't want nothing to do with it, right? My homeboy tried to talk to the coach. He don't want nothing to do with it. So we was already kind of trying to get back into school and trying to, you know, do the college thing. And it got to a point where it's like, there's really no opportunities. And immediately once they told us about this, we absolutely jumped on it. 110%. I had all my transcripts, all the blah, 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 blah. I did everything, got it all out the way. He did too. We drive down to visit. We see the school. We liked it. On the way home, me and him talking about it, and I was like, bro, like you got to come. You know what I'm saying? He's kind of in and out about it, right? He like, whatever, you know, trying to figure it out. I'm like, bro, you got to come. Like, I can't go here alone, and I'm definitely going. Like, you got to come with me, bro. Like, it's us. Like, we a duo, bro. Let's go. You know what I mean?
We got to do this.
We got to do this. You know what I'm saying? And to be honest, it really didn't take much convincing to him. He just needed to know what his options was. Now, this person I keep referring to, his name is Demekus Beach, right?
I'm sorry, what was it?
Demekus Beach.
Okay.
Demekus ended up being a USA Eagle. So this is how the story started with
God, dog.
You know what I'm saying? With him and rugby, me and rugby, us and rugby, the path, right? I talked to him, get him to play. We end up going to Davenport. And once we got to Davenport, man, everything just started falling in line. Everything just started falling in line.
So what was it? Because, okay, you're talking about in 2010. We're talking about the early stages. Like, I feel like even Lindenwood's program hadn't even really started at that point.
It didn't exist yet.
Right. So you're talking about a Davenport team that I think possibly at that time, I think the closest probable scholarship school was Palmer in Iowa. Maybe Palmer Chiropractic School in like Iowa.
Yeah, it was like Palmer Life Cal.
Exactly.
That's about it. It was less than 5.
You were literally on the earliest stage of having this scholarship, arguably opportunity for rugby.
Yeah.
What was that kind of jump being into the preeminent? Because obviously now we see Davenport. Whenever the Mid-South existed, they were doing their thing within it very well. Strong rivalries between now Lindenwood and Life and all of them, but you're talking about the beginning stage. What was that? I use rivalry very.
Yeah, I'm about to say that wasn't no rivalry. They're my dog. Don't get it twisted. Davenport my people, but you got to win some games for it to be a rivalry.
Right.
I think you only.
I watched a couple of those games.
Yeah,
I kind of.
They only be live one time in like 9 years or something. That ain't a rivalry. That's us trying. We was trying hard. We were attempting, but so this is the thing about scholarships, right? And this is the dark side of it.
Yeah.
It's not covering a lot.
Right.
It's not covering much of anything, right? At that time, I end up getting a scholarship that probably covered like for the year, maybe 10% total.
Oh wow.
15% total, right? It helped, but it ain't moved a needle into that effect. At that point, I came in with an academic scholarship because I like tested out so well. I ended up being a mascot at Davenport. Like I was doing whatever I can to cut corners and make it work, girl. But it wasn't a scholarship in the sense that we think like college football, like tuition, books, room and board, done. It was more like, all right,
so I
got to play for classes, but my room and board for the year is taken care of. I ain't got to worry about where I'm gonna live, right? My loans can be for this and not that kind of thing. Like, right. You're not paying for your living arrangements, or you ain't paying for your living arrangements and books, but it is what it is. It wasn't too crazy, but it still was on the cutting edge floor. You were like right at the beginning. I was right at the beginning of it. Right. So the thing about it is when you're going into a place where you're on scholarship, you fall under a set of rules and operations, even though you're not really taken care of as somebody on scholarship. Yeah. So it was there were good times and there were bad times. There were, like for example, like the first week we was there, and this is like funny. This like show you like, always listen to your parents. So we drive down to Davenport and we there a week before school start. So there's a whole week we there with all we got is our crib. Like all we got is the place we sleep. Ain't no food. The mess hall ain't open. None of the buildings really open like that. Like it's just wake up, go to practice, they feed you. You go back home at night, it ain't nothing. So like from like 5:30, you know what I'm saying, until we wake up again, like we on our own, bro. Me and this dude Meekus, man, went through some of the toughest. My mom sent us down with like a 10-pack of like Angus burgers.
God,
right?
Yo, they must have been greasy as a mug, though.
No, listen. I ain't tasted burgers that good since, bro. Let me tell you, bro. These things, I don't even know if they really was delicious, but when I say these things came in a clutch, like it was so many of these little moments where it's like you be in the middle of it, like, man, shoot, like, is this right? Like, could it be like this? Like, you just kind of debating. Like, we going to practice, and mind you, this is a new environment, right?
Right.
So at this point, I've never been into anything high performance in a general sense, right? I've been to a football camp or two, you know what I mean? But in this case, it's like we 2-a-days, we running, we hitting, you know what I'm saying? And you're new to an environment with a team that, are ultra successful. They had a year before I got there. And the year before I got there was them beating up on all the D2, D3 teams in the area and then going to play like better teams, better schools, and losing to them. They lost to Bowling Green. They lost to Miami of Ohio. But they're beating up on these like small schools that don't mean anything. And that was like one of the reasons why they made this big push. It was like, in order for us to get over the top, we got to start bringing in players.
Right.
You know what I mean? And me and Demetrius is in this dorm room, like starving at times. Like, bro, it's 6 hours until it's 9 o'clock. We ain't got nothing to do. We ain't got no bread. I had a car, but it don't, like, where I'm going to drive. Like, I don't know nothing. We in Grand Rapids. I ain't never been there. Like, I don't know nothing about this place. And we just like figuring it out. But once the season started and once we really got settled in, it was like, okay, we can make something. We can get this popping. We can make it shake if we wanted to. And then from then on, man, it was on, man. That Davenport team was something different.
Yo, what was that jump then? Because look, obviously going from Toledo, you're doing 2 days a week, probably Tuesday, Thursdays, practicing for 3 years. Saturday, you guys play, yada, yada. And of course, you already had your competitive edge, but that jump to now a focused sport, you're doing daily workouts, you're having to do actual full drills. I know you and Migas were incredibly competitive, already playing buku sports throughout the weekend. But like, what was that realization in terms of like your personal growth? What was that realization on how you adjusted?
I didn't adjust well, to be honest. I didn't adjust well. A part of me was like, I love the fact that it was like I had something to do. I had tasks to do. I had places to be, things to do, people to see, you know what I'm saying, to get it popping. But I didn't adjust to it well because in a sense, it felt like it was too much. It felt like it was too much. Now, I'm going to grind through it. I'm going to make it work. We're going to get through it. But I realized, especially when the first season was over, I did, like, when the summer happened, the smart thing is to go play sevens. You know what I mean? I had opportunity to go play sevens at a couple teams. I was like, man, I'm going home. Like, I had enough of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday walkthrough. We on a bus. Back Saturday, I can chill Sunday. Back to Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Even in the off season, it was just a lot. It was just a lot. And because it was my first time leaving the crib, I was so homesick. Man, I was back like every weekend. Like for the first like 5 months, from like August to like January, I probably went back home like 8 or 9 times. Like it's only a 2.5 hour drive one way. So
it's not a big deal.
Yeah, we ain't got a game Friday. By 9:30 p.m., I'm back in Toledo, Ohio that Friday. And then at 10:30 at night on Sunday, we driving back. And that's the part that really made it hard to adjust, is because, you know what I mean, I've never been homesick before. So dealing with that, this is one of the things that's really important about Great American Rugby. Like, these people are leaving their families, leaving their homes, leaving the lives that they had established. Now that life was, granted to you, given to you because your parents handle business, but to wake up one day and you don't have that support system and arms reach like you used to, and having to focus on rugby and grind through it. Like I got so much respect for people who do that because I've had to do it. So once I got through with the homesickness, that's when it I guess by the spring of my first year at Davenport, I was playing the best rugby I had played in my life up until that point. And the jump between playing in club where it's every so often and doing it every day clearly made me better, but it was also a jump in competition. So the competition is more fierce too. So I had a real early humbling moment because like I said, I played against Bowling Green a few times, but our first league match was against Bowling Green, and we came out the gates and we was cool. We was rocking with them, and then they took the game away pretty much in the last 40 minutes, 30 minutes, a little bit into the second half. They just took the game away, and it was a real moment. Are we gonna do this? Because I ended up missing a tackle. Somebody else made a mistake, but I missed a tackle I should have made. So nobody really overly blamed me for missing a tackle because the earlier mistake made it happen. But that missed tackle echoed in my mind for the entire year. And it was something that it was just a simple missed tackle, dude winning the score. The game was already in hand. It wouldn't have changed the results either way. I wasn't saving nothing.
But it's the lack of execution in your mind that you're like.
It was the you better than you got to be better than this. You hear. You know what I'm saying? And this happened in Bowling Green, so my family can come. So my family drove the 20 minutes to see me, and I'm missing tackles. All right, so why did I leave them? Mind you, this is only the second week. I've only been gone from my hometown for a month and a half at this point. Second week of the season, second game of the season. But that really just kind of set a fire. And after that, man, I was pretty much locked in. It took me actually playing bad. And every time I would play bad, anytime something would happen where I wouldn't play up to how I feel I should play, the next week I was better. Yeah. And if I didn't make a play, I was better. And it got to the point where it was rare that I wasn't making the play I was supposed to. And then, you become a person your guys depend on. And that's the biggest, kudos you can get from your boys. So that's pretty much what it was. I wanted to be dependent on by these dudes. And that's pretty much what led me after that.
No, that makes a lot of sense. So again, it goes back to what you just said before. Whenever it was just you and your boy and just playing, and you guys were competitive and you guys were playing all the time. That same fire now focused into, albeit a specific sport, now is just okay, we're now at least inflamed. And I gotta assume now having that much more focus, it made you be able to be I can improve much faster from that week to week basis.
Learning how to work is the biggest thing, right? Yeah. So imagine, I'm in Ohio. If it's a Wednesday, we don't have no practice, but I want to get better at rugby. I wouldn't even know the beginning stages of what to do. I would simply just pick up a rugby ball and go running, learn to grub, maybe that kind of thing. I go to Davenport. Now we got drills that we can work on. I know the solo stuff to get better, right? I know how to improve my pass. I know how to improve my ball handling. I know how to improve my conditioning. So the stuff I needed to actually work on, I would work on. I would basically sit in my room for hours. I would watch Geo Aplon highlights, South Africa highlights, and just pop a rugby ball for hours at a time. Yeah. Hours at a time. Forearms just absolutely torn to shreds, right? And these little things I was doing were making me better, but I had to learn how to do the work to make me better. And that's when you mix that with me wanting to get better with the little things I was doing to improve. And by the time the spring, like I said, man, by the time the spring came around when I was at Davenport, I was on a tear. It was to the point where it was just it wasn't in question. When I first got there, I'm competing for positions. And I wasn't the best winger when I first got there. You know what I mean? And honestly, the player who was ahead of me got hurt. I think if he don't get hurt, I'm competing for my spot. You know what I mean? Well, not for my spot, excuse me. I'm competing every day to prove that I'm the best winger on the team. You know what I'm saying? Buddy get hurt. Shout out to Norris. Norris get hurt, unfortunately. And to be honest, that was one of those things that kind of cleared up a lot of stuff for the team as well, because it was always this: we got too many good players and not enough positions. You know what I mean?
Right. That's a good problem to have.
That's a great problem to have, right? And then one of your better players gets hurt.
Right.
Now you got people who have to step up,
shift up.
Yeah, shift around, make moves, make decisions, make it happen. And no offense to Norris, but once he got hurt, we literally became a better team. You know what I mean?
We rallied, Tom Brady moment.
Yeah, we rallying around the guy. You know what I'm saying? Now, mind you, I was starting in. You know what I mean? I was a starter then, but it was always like, hey, you one mistake away. Hey, you won, you know what I mean? Like, you better be locked in this game. You know what I mean? And Buddy got hurt against Notre Dame. I remember this like it was yesterday, because it was the first time I ever see somebody break their leg, like actually see it.
Oh wow! And, wait, so was it like actually like you saw the snap, or was it like just like it's one of those where it's like you see them get hit and then you see the hang?
No. He just got in. He was a substitute. It was like the 60th minute. The ball gets to him and he takes a beeline right for a guy. Like, he ain't trying to run left or right. He running right at him. The guy punked up and tried to stop, and in the conditions he slipped and his cleats came up and Norris just ran into it. His leg ran into it, and you just see him fall over. And I seen his leg do the
just flop.
Yeah, and it was like, dude, I stopped. I couldn't play no more. Like, I couldn't play. Yeah, until this is fixed, I couldn't play. So like the game kind of went on a little bit, and I'm just next to him, like, bro, like you like I got, like, relax, breathe, bro, I got you. I'm in the middle of the game and I helped carry him off the field. Like, I wasn't leaving homie's side until it was like taken care of type stuff.
Right.
And like that was another thing, because at no point did the real dangers of rugby come into play. Man, I'm playing this game like a kid. Like, I'm crashing in between props. I'm doing like reckless in mind. You know what I mean? Because that's the way you got to play. You can't think about getting hurt. But like, that was the first time I ever seen like, oh, it can really get dangerous. And it got dangerous because he was intimidating. The guy was scared and slipped, and that happened. It wasn't because our guy was the one being soft necessarily. It was because the other guy froze up. And that was like a real wake-up call. I think from then, that's when it became a lot more
like permanent, like the focus changed from
primal. It became a lot more like, all right, this can affect your quality of life. Like, button up. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you can have fun, keep having fun, but the consequences can get real. I don't think he's played rugby since.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
So this 2011, spring of 2011. And I don't think he's played rugby since. And he was a phenomenal player, one of the best on our team.
So one thing you mentioned kind of in the past, and I wanted to ask this. Obviously, you talked about all the obstacles you dealt with those early months. What was it that prevented you from being like, F it, I'm gonna go back? Because you're already going back to Toledo. You have your boy playing, but all this is going on. What was it that who was it that kept you being like, yo, I'm not gonna jump out of this?
Like, it wasn't like I was playing till I was done. There wasn't no other option. There was no the idea of quitting or not being a part of it was not an option at any point in my mind when I was at Davenport. Ever, not even a little bit. The only thing I was worried about was, mind you, this 2010 when I go to Davenport. So I graduated in 2006, and this is when the eligibility rules that we live under now were actually solidified. Davenport University was part of the reason why me, Demetrius, and a few other guys are the reason why the eligibility rules for college rugby are what they are today. I'm not even like, I want to sound arrogant when I say it, like, you know what I'm saying, the Lance Cavanaugh rule, but it really was to that level, right? Because it was this argument of like these BYU guys who were coming back from mission and being like 25 and playing, and it was this whole thing, right? Only thing I was worried about at the time when I was at Davenport was if I had enough eligibility to play more than 1 year. Like, I thought I was just going to play this 1 year, and then we had to petition for more, and I might not get it. And that was the main thing. The main thing I was focused on was the ability or having the opportunity to actually play for more than one season. If I can do that, I was going to be here as long as I could. And after the first year, we were granted a second year. And it was like, from the beginning of the second year, they was like, this it, fam. Like, once y'all done with this year, y'all out of there. So you know, that became a thing. But it was never a moment where I was like, oh, I'm going to go back to Ohio. To what? To what? What is it like? Like, no offense, I love my hometown. Like, shout out Toledo. But what was in Toledo for me? Like, I didn't fit in. I wasn't part of the in crowd. I didn't care to keep up with the Joneses. I wasn't trying to be the cool dude on the scene. I didn't care much about the women there. Only thing that's there, and it still is, this fact lingers from the moment I left in 2010 till now, is the thing that is in Ohio that makes me come back is family, point blank, period. That's it. If my entire family upped and moved to another city, I probably would only go to Ohio for high school reunions or stuff like that. I would never go back to Toledo if I can. You know what I mean? Like, it's family. So
makes perfect sense.
Yeah, like I had no. It was no going. Nah, not at all.
Next year, you won a national championship.
That year.
That was that year. Okay, that's true, bro. All that work you guys have been doing, all the hard work, you get to a national, and this is, I'm assuming this is the first national championship you've ever won. I'm talking about rugby, football, almost any form.
Only championship of consequence I won at that point. Like the rest of the champions, you know, like I won some intramural basketball championships. You know what I'm saying? I might have won like an off-season wrestling tournament or something. But to that point, like, that championship was like the one. And it's the thing, like I said, we lost to BG. So we lost to BG first league game of the year. And then we played them in the conference championships and they beat us again by like, I think they beat us by like 15. They scored at the very end where it didn't matter. But yeah, so they was up like 8 points and then scored and made the conversion. And like the whole time BG was absolute a-holes through this whole thing. Like most teams, you competitive. When it's over, it's like it's all good. BG at that point were the number one team in the nation. You remember Rugby Mag, right? Rugby Mag had a rating. That was like the only one that was out. They were the number one team in the nation. And I remember at that time, D1 AA only had 15 conferences. So every conference champion made it to the national champion, made it to the tournament. And it was an at-large bid. And because our conference was so stacked, with Bowling Green, Miami of Ohio, us, Indiana, right? Because our conference was like so deep, it was like, all right, the number 2 team from that conference can just be the 16th seed. Like, let's just make it simple. 2 teams from that conference, nobody else. So we lose the conference championship, but we get in by beating Indiana the day before. So, you know what I'm saying? We like, oh, it's time. Like, we looked at the bracket, you know, eventually how it all laid out. And we went into the offseason, like knowing like, all right, we're going to have to face BG again. And they already beat us twice.
You remember them. It's like, we're not forgetting.
it was like the whole time we was working during that offseason, in the back of everybody's mind, it was mentioned a lot of times during that, hey, stop f***ing around during these drills. Bowling Green is out there. Like, it was one of those things like, if we practicing, we together, everybody's locked in because we're going to have to play Bowling Green at some point. They already beat us twice by more than 10 points. We gotta close the gap. And the only reason they was really beating us is because we all came together at the beginning of August, and then we had a game at the end of August, and then September we playing in our. So it was like,
so you guys were just fresh.
We weren't working together or anything. We weren't, you know what I'm saying? So that whole spring, we already knew we were in the 16, right? Then the details come out, where we'll be playing at and all that stuff. And as we creep closer and closer, and, you know, genius of our coach to schedule our offseason the way he did, our offseason consisted of like these away games against teams that were strong, right? So we went to Indiana to play them, right? We went to Wisconsin to play them, and Wisconsin was the best team in the Midwest. Outside, it was like BG, Wisconsin were like 1 and 2, and the Midwest was split. So they end up losing. Wisconsin ended up losing to Minnesota. So Minnesota is in the Sweet 16, and Wisconsin got eliminated, but Wisconsin were the better team. They just lost on the day, essentially. Kind of one of those things, right? So we playing like Cincinnati away. We do all these crazy road trips. We had one home game in the spring. So we know we going to the Nationals, but we only play one home game. And we went to a bunch of away games. We traveling all through the Midwest. We going crazy, right? And by this point, we were just getting better and better and better. The system was getting understood. It wasn't no shuffling around the players. We knew what our team was going to look like. And by the time we got to the Sweet 16, we were foaming at the mouth. Like all right, looking at the bracket, we like, if we play BG, it's going to be in the national championship game. Like, it was laid out. Like, we know that if we win all our games, the last game of the year, we're going to play Bowling Green. And we went into the playoffs ready to freaking go. We whooped up on Minnesota. That's what we played the first game. And some of the worst.
I was gonna say, that's whenever that petty vengeance is always that's a different level of power. That's a different level of charm.
Like, I can get hype about it now. And that let's mention him twice. Nate was playing on that Minnesota team, right? So like
Osberger.
Future the man himself was on that Minnesota team, right? And we end up like going, like, it was terrible weather though. So it was like 25 degrees freezing sideways rain, right? But we end up winning that game like 26-0. I had a hat trick. So this is my first playoff game. I get a hat trick. It's turned up. When I say I'm on a tear, when I say I was on a tear, I was something different, right? Next game, we played Kansas State. I don't score, but I'm like all up and down the highlights. Like, nobody can stop me. If I'm not scoring, the next phase after I carry the ball, we scoring. If I'm not scoring, my pass lead to the hockey assist that score. Like everything the team do, we just on. All right, so we beat Minnesota. We beat Kansas State. Now we got to go to California, right? And this is where rugby take over. It's my first time ever on a plane. First time I ever got on a plane in my life. I was 23, and I was flying from Grand Rapids to Detroit for a layover to fly from Detroit to San Francisco.
Okay, that makes sense.
Right.
That makes sense.
So yeah, I try to say my first flight was to San Francisco, but really it was a connection flight. That was like literally as soon as we got to like cruising altitude, we was already on our way down.
Right. Look, you needed a warm up. It was the warm up flight.
It was a warm up. I had to learn to take off. You know what I mean? How that works. So we go to California. I called it a Sunshine State in the Facebook post. I still get teased about that. Shout out to Davenport boys. Shout out to the boys. And we ready. We are literally like, BG is one game away. We got to beat Harvard. We beat Harvard. We gonna beat the Met. Like, we are like, I can't wait to see these. I still hate BG. Like, and I'm grown now. Like, I still hate BG, right? And this is the reason though. We play against Harvard. We go off. We beat them like 50 something, like 16. I end up scoring twice that game.
Yeah.
And it was like one of those things, like, especially for me, I'm still thinking about that missed tackle in the fall, right? So I'm like, I am locked in, ready to go. And it's probably, I probably this is part of my youthful mind at the time, but Bowling Green playing against like Santa Barbara, University of California, Santa Barbara, and we warming up, and they doing everything BG normally do. Force a penalty, get a kick right in the middle for the post, except that kicker is missing. So against us, we give up a penalty. That's 3. We do that 2, 3, 4 times. Now they up like 9-0. That kind of stuff demoralizing. Like, bro, if y'all keep reaching into this ruck and keep giving these dudes points, like, but now he missing. And then we hearing the crowd go crazy. Try Santa Barbara. Like, oh, snaps. Try Santa. We looking like, yo, who's this Santa Barbara team? They weren't in the plans when we was beating up. We was working hard.
We had them on the record.
Right. We was in the lab. We wasn't thinking about Santa Barbara, right? And actually, that's a team that Kevin Battle.
That's Kevin Battle's team, huh?
Yeah, that was the same year. Kevin Battle coaching, right? And they ended up beating up on Bowling Green. They beat Bowling Green by like the same amount of points that we lose to Bowling Green, right?
God.
So now all of us are like in the hotel room, right? I remember, not in the hotel room, but we was in the meeting room. And I think it was like wasn't enough chairs or wasn't chairs for everybody. So everybody's sitting on the floor around this meeting room, and we just all looking at each other like, all right now. All right. Like, we asked for Bowling Green, and we got something worse. we got something we ain't never seen before, yo. Like you know what I'm saying? Like, hey. And then that game, man, when I say like all the stars aligned, that was like one of the most like poetic for me, you know what I mean? Like as somebody who didn't win anything as a kid, didn't win really like many championships. I didn't play on teams that were like winning in the region or anything like that.
Right.
And now I'm sitting like on the doorstep of a national title to a sport that most people in my hometown don't know or care about.
Right.
And me and my homeboy, like we just kind of like going through this journey, like how did we end up here? And it's a funny thing. It's something that we carried, that title and how we like was feeling in that title, we carried with us as we played in other places too. But it was just like, how did we end up here? Wow. Man, when that game kicked off, I think that was like the most beautiful 80 minutes that we had played as a team. We got up early on them because we were better. And then they started to figure out how to stop what we was doing. And essentially what we was doing was we were scoring most of our tries on lineouts where the first hit up would be to Demekus. Now he's 6'4", 260 at this point, right? This massive dude, but he's faster than most people. So you worried about whether or not he's going to run you over, and he'll just run to the space on the left or right of you and just fend you off. So he getting down the field, setting up tries, setting up everything for us, right? And they threw the kitchen sink at him the second half, right? So like if this dude get the ball, they did
a Jonah Lomo, like just hit him.
They throwing it like Jonah Lomo, like they had to like prep themselves. Like if I break my neck tackling to him, I'm gonna do it. Like these dudes. Santa Barbara came out that second half roaring to go, right? But they took the lead at the end of the first. Yeah. So imagine they not really playing their best rugby, but then in the last 8 minutes of the first half, they scored back-to-back long distance tries. Right? Both tries were like 70 meters. So it's like, oh, okay. So they got the ability, and nobody really had the ability to score on us like that. So we're like, we get punched in the mouth, and now we down, and we kind of, and we go to the huddle, and we just like, oh, we good. Like it could be panic. It was no panic. It was just like, all right, so we're gonna keep giving them points, and we're gonna start playing. Man, that second half, man, our defense, that was the best defense I'd probably been a part of. You know what I'm saying? That second half. We didn't give up another point the rest of the game, and we ended up putting up like 2 or 3 more tries. Yo. And the final whistle blow, and final whistle blow, and man, I can't. If I watch it now, like if I watch the last 5 minutes of that game now, because I done watched it enough that I know like with the people that's behind the camera are talking and saying, like people in the crowd, you kind of hear them a little bit, and like when I watch it now, like it's the most like giggly, like. Thank God we made it kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm running on the field like, yeah. The Beaches who was subbed out come running from the sideline and come chase me and tackle me in midfield. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's something that I'm never going to forget that. It's one of the bigger blessings I've had is being a part of a team that was successful because it solidified me as an athlete.
Yeah.
That first one solidified me as an athlete. Like, nobody can ever say, I wasn't good at sports because at some point I did something that not many people would be able to accomplish. And it made rugby like a different kind of fun because, you know, now I'm successful. I know what success looks like. Right. I know what a good team looks like. I know what it feels like to be a part of something that turned out to be special, man. And after that, man, that Davenport team that was it. The next year, it was a walkthrough. Next year was a walkthrough. The next year, it was almost like when we first started the season, like, hey, man, we better than everybody. We just got to prove it. Okay. And we just literally just beat up on everybody all the way through.
Sheesh.
Like, smooth through. And then, you know, and so many good players on that team, right? It's like 3 Eagles from that team.
Yeah.
You know, 5 All-Americans total.
God, dog.
I guess Welmer's. I don't know if Welmer's capped for sevens, but he was a resident for the sevens team for a long time.
Still,
MLR players, pro rugby players,
bro.
Like, you know,
do you feel like that was like the central place where your rugby network truly developed out from?
Yes and no. Yes, because I got to meet people Midwest, right? Yeah. a lot of the Midwestern people that I know now come from that, come from that Davenport thing. But I think more of the New York, when I spent time at Old Blue, that's when it really became like, oh, I know more people than I thought I knew. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's when I really was like, okay, I know a lot of people actually. But yeah,
Okay.
like that story. The reason it was important for me to say that first champion story is because that's where the love was solidified. It was already there. It was already concrete. But by the time that championship whistle blew, the concrete had dried and it had turned to platinum. And it was engraved.
Done. Like this is you forever.
I know where I'm supposed to be at. I know what I'm supposed to be at.
So let me jump this a little bit. I know we're taking time. But, let me know if you run out. But
hey, bro, I'm here to tell you we can go through the whole thing.
Let's go. All right, bet. So okay, I kind of want to jump actually to New York. What were you in Florida? You were in Florida after New York, correct?
Yes.
Okay, let's jump to New York.
You gonna skip life? You gonna skip life university? Okay.
I mean, you had like a year. Look. I said.
This month about to be 3 hours. No, let's go to New York.
Hey,
skip life.
All right, let's go. Hey, we can do for 3 hours. I will Joe Rogan in the time limit. This as a
Dude, listen, I got time, bro.
Okay, bet. Okay, time. I want to know. So, what took you from now Toledo, Davenport? You dropped down to Atlanta for a little bit. What takes you all the way up to New York? And in this, before you even go to that, the mindset of travel. Let me go on that. The mindset of traveling to all these places. I know Chicago was like a moment, but I feel like for some reason that unlocked something for you and allowed the Grand Rapids to kick in, and now Atlanta, and then Florida. What was it that was in you where you were just like, I need to go, like I need to pick up and I need to go to another place?
Well, up until that point, Chicago. So this before I started playing rugby. Up until me going to Chicago, I hadn't really spent much time outside of Toledo. Right, I would go. My mom's side of the family is from Baltimore, so I spent time in Baltimore, Columbia, areas like that, in Maryland. But outside of that, I wouldn't spend time anywhere. I might go to Detroit for like 2 hours or something. But I primarily, for the first 23 years of my life, spent pretty much all the time in Toledo. And that's why going to Chicago was such like, oh yeah, like what do I need? Man, I got like $50. I ain't got to pay for gas. Yeah, I'm good. Let's go to Chicago. I go hang out. Even if I'm doing nothing, I was doing nothing at home at that point, right? Looking for work or whatever. And I think once I got to Grand Rapids, especially once I stopped playing rugby for Davenport, I spent another year in Grand Rapids, and I had to work. And I had to, be self-reliant. I had to meet people. I had to navigate the world a little bit. I learned so much about myself, not being so attached to the family part, not being so attached to my home, or even having, being at Davenport and playing for them. That's still a net where I can fall back on. You know what I'm saying? I know I got a dorm to stay at. I know where I'm going to be Tuesday at 4:30. I know where I'm going, and then I had to be more, I had to, chart my own course. And once I did that in Grand Rapids, it basically became like, I know I can live anywhere. Like I had the capacity to meet people, at worst, at absolute worst, I'll be able to find a job. I'll be able to find a place to stay. At the time I had Tori, which is my red Ford Taurus. Shout out to Tori, rest in peace.
Let's go.
So I was confident, like anywhere that an opportunity popped up, I would go. Now at this time, because you know what I'm saying, the reason that I tell everybody the story of Demetrius is because that's how all the other stuff came about. I got to Life University because Demetrius went to Life and was like, "Oh, Lance, bro, you better than half the dudes here. You need to come." Like, I'm chilling, dude. You need to come down here. So I end up taking a road trip from Grand Rapids to Miami, but on the way I stopped in Atlanta at the coaches.
At that time, it was Dan Payne that was head coach there.
Yes, director of rugby, right? Sat down with him. Demetrius said a lot about you, blah, blah, blah. Skip. one of my coaches from Davenport actually vouched for me because in rugby, in order for you to do anything in advance, somebody has to vouch for you.
Right.
I mean, so somebody vouched for me, and I went to Florida, and on my way back up, so I'm figured some stuff out, met with him on my way back, and then I ended up setting up to come to life because.
I was going to say, that means you had 1 year of eligibility remaining off of that 7-year eligibility term? No. Okay.
I was completely done with college eligibility. So I only got 2 years at Davenport. Both years we won national championships. Second year was a walkthrough. The only competition we had was like Dartmouth. And that's when they had like Madison Hughes and Nate Barkley and like all them, like Owen and all these dudes, right?
Right. Gavin was the coach there doing
you know what I'm saying? So like that's 2012. I spent the fall of 2012 and 2013 in Grand Rapids, or the spring of 2013 in Grand Rapids. Demetrius was saying in the fall, like, yo, come sleep on my couch. Just come up to life and just be up here. Come sleep on my couch. I'm like, dog, I got a job, I can't, do this. He's like, all right. So I ended up going later. And when I got to life, it was the same thing again as when I was in Grand Rapids.
Right.
I got all the stuff I need. If I live in the means that I'm supposed to, and I handle business like I'm supposed to, I'll be able to be self-sufficient. And once I had that confidence, leaving the house wasn't so much. Because one thing about me is like, I'm too prideful to be asking my peoples for stuff. You know what I'm saying? So I ain't want to ask my mom for no money. Like, she got her own thing. I ain't about to ask my pops. My pops could spare it. Yeah, but nah, fam. Like, I don't want it. So once I realized I can stand on my own too, that's when it was like, all right, let's make it happen. And I went down to life and was couch surfing for the first 4 months. You know what I mean? It wasn't even solidified. It was like, bro, like, you gonna be here anyway. We'll get you a room at some point, but just make it work. That's how they was. You know what I'm saying? Tui was the head coach of the men's club. So I didn't play college no more. This is all men's club, right?
Right. Okay. So it was the Life University men's D1, D2 D club side.
D1. So they weren't D2 then. This one, the men's team, the Life men's team was at like the height of its superpowers, right?
So you played with Phil Thiel during that time, right?
I'm gonna give you a Phil Thiel story, right? So we playing against, I think it's like the undergrads. We playing a scrimmage, and this was like one of my early, super early moments. Like, this is probably like a week into practicing with the men's team, right? My first like month or so there, I was practicing with the undergrad.
Okay.
And because the men's team wasn't doing anything except for playing in like an elite group. ETG is what they called it. They take all the best players in the program, regardless of level, and they take the best, 27, 28, and they all go train together, and the rest of the bums, I'm with them, right? And finally the season end or whatever, and I squeaked my way into getting some playing time for the ETG squad because I'm like, my cheat code is I'm a really good practice player. Like, that is like my superpower, right? If you give me the same setup 10 times in a row,
you're gonna kill it.
I'm gonna figure it out, and then it's a dub. Like, now I'm just gonna keep winning the drill. Like, you can't not play me if I win every drill we do because of repetition, right? So
listen to that, people. Any future rugby players, remember that. If you can win the practice, you're gonna get in the game. There's a strong.
You're gonna play. Like, it's hard. It's hard to put a dude on the bench that outperform people in practice. And that's pretty much what it was. Like, even if the coaches had an issue with anything with me, I always butt head with coaches. Like, since it's really based, like, as I psychoanalyze myself as an adult, it's because of high school. I kind of carried a lot of grief from high school, but I would always butt head with coaches. But because I was so thorough in a practice sense, it was hard. I was hard not to play. But anywho, I end up sneaking some time on the men's team, ETG squad.
Nice.
End up getting like a start. They pay me for like 30 minutes, and then I play another game for like 25, 30 minutes or whatever. And I earn my respect essentially. So we doing a scrimmage, and we have a massive break, and I'm playing wing. At this time in life, it was like, you're the winger, shut up, go to the wing, right? All right, cool. I'm new here, whatever. and they just won a championship. So they won D1 club before I got there, and lost in the Elite Cup essentially.
Right.
You remember when the Super Rugby had the Elite Cup?
Absolutely. Yep.
And they lost to like Golden Gate, and they ended up beating Old Puget Sound in the D1 club championship right after that.
Yeah.
So I'm jumping in there, and they like, bro, fit in, fall in line, like, you know what I'm saying? You ain't got no pool. Like, all right, cool. We had this massive break down the side during this scrimmage, and I get the ball, and I go absolutely He-Man at this point, right? I make a move on one dude, a baby goose half-step tempo move on another dude, and then, like, it's me and one defender, and I grub it. And it's like a 10-meter grub. I get past that dude, and right when I'm gathering it, like just short of the try line, it wasn't like I could fall on it. I had to like gather it and take it with me.
Right.
And I knocked it on. Right.
Oh.
Everything I did before that was like pure class. But I knocked the ball on. And I'm like getting up, like, fuck, like, damn. You know what I'm saying? Kind of upsetting myself. And Phil was like, hold on, everybody. Wait. Stop. He stopped everybody that was around there. It was like, you know, like 5 life players, 5 of my teammates and like 1 defender or whatever. And he was like, Lance, look around, bro. Like you ain't got to score every time. No, you know what I'm saying? You ain't got to score every time. Essentially, I was in the mode like when I played at Davenport and other places, especially like club and on my way up. Every time I touch the ball, we trying to score this hoe. Like I'm trying to take this thing to the brim every time. And he basically was like, Lance, man, you ain't got to do that no more. Like you ain't. It don't even take all that. And like the way he did it was just so smooth. It wasn't even like embarrassing. It was just like a matter of fact, like, bro, here go the facts. It's 5 of us. If you get tackled, we ruck out and we score the next phase anyway. It's 1 defender. You did exactly like you did your job. You don't have to do the extra stuff. You don't have to do too much, right? And to be honest, it helped me fit into what the life system was, but that little bit, like, hey, everybody stop, Lance, pay attention, like made me a completely better player because I was no longer stressed with trying to score all the time. Now I'm still gonna try to get a bucket, but now I'm not so pressed to where the ball dies with me. You know what I mean? I don't have to do risky stuff anymore, right?
Right.
And
so it puts you into that position where it's like I can trust everybody's position on the field, and I don't have to be the king, the queen, and all the pieces on the board. That is a different mindset to be able to, and to know that you can trust that everybody on the field is going to do their job.
I like that analogy. I love chess too, so that's a perfect analogy. But it's also because it's Phil. So at this time, he is the USA starting hooker. There's no debate. There's nobody else. We're going to a World Cup. If we beat these teams, that's the World Cup hooker. Like, man, you ain't gotta take it all the way every time. And then from then on, man, it became like, especially that first year at Life. That first year at Life, Tui is my coach. He used to always stress some of that. Ah, man, I did not like him that much as a coach, man. I did not like him as a coach that much. Like it wasn't even that. It was so I live a very carefree existence, like how I approach things, right? I love life. Like I'm not gonna stress over stuff. You know what I mean? I'm stoic. I'm stoic. At that time, I was stoic without the calm, silent part. It was like I can fix anything that goes wrong, but I'm still out here. We getting it. What's up? I'm joyful, enjoying life. And you know, for a new guy to come in and be carefree, make a mistake and be like, I'll fix it the next time. That's a thought process you need to have if you don't want to put too much pressure on yourself. Right. But the others on the outside looking in, it seems like you don't give a you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I do. I hate making mistakes. I hate being the reason why we don't score if my mistake is it. But I wouldn't carry it with me. And you know, you're dealing with Tui, who had his own list of pressures dealing with, you know, like life ain't the most
easy.
Easy is a word, but it's not the right word. It's not necessarily a utopia, especially at that time. Like everybody has something they didn't like about what was going on. Every player, everybody had at least one thing. Even the guys that's like, hey man, you play for the USA. He still has some stuff that was happening at the time in life where he was like, yeah, this ain't sweet. So Tui had his own list of pressures and sacrifices he had to make. And, you know, one of them probably was the fact that I was so aloof about and so like whatever about cavalier about stuff. Like, look, man, like I'm clear. Like, and it's another thing. Nobody likes it when I know I'm good.
Right.
And no coach likes it when I know I'm good. Now, the reason I know I'm good is because I'm having success in practice, in games. Like this is what I'm doing is working. If I go to my imagination and work out, I know I'm good. I'm the one.
Fact.
But you know what I mean? People would take it as arrogance. You know what I'm saying? Now come to find out as I get older, that had less to do with me and more to do with them.
The pressures of the administration
and how they perceive it or whatever. But that's what he was dealing with. So it made like we used to butt heads all the time. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like we had a conversation about it since. Like it's kind of funny. But when I was playing under Tui, that was the best rugby I played, probably in my life. Because I was taught in such a way where it was like you only had to really tell me once. You know what I'm saying? A lot of goofy things was happening, like whenever I bust out a new skill or something. But for the most part, with Tui, you know what I'm saying, and how they operated the offense, who was on that team at the time, like man, I was on a different level at that point.
I mean, I'll put the argument. Let's put the argument. That might be the most professional team that you have played for, in a structural sense, right?
Yes.
From what you've taken, and we'll go on to the other ones, but I kind of want to get a comparison from what you took from Toledo, Davenport to what you've taken with Old Blue, Roots, South Florida, Rhinos, all these people. What made Life University, in your opinion, stand out where they have been able to be such a consistent pinnacle of success? Obviously, players, I know, but everybody, there's always a place that gets players. What is it that Life did that makes it where they were so successful so consistently?
I never played with Rhino. Let's get that.
I'm sorry.
Let me think. I think a lot of it has to do with, if we can go simply, it's the standard. Simply put, if I can just one word, two words, the standard. And that's what I mean. If you can't do the simple stuff right, why are you out here? And that's not necessarily the case with all the teams I played on, right? Most of the teams I played on had people, at least on some point or another, that were at the beginning stage of rugby, right?
Right.
At Life, that really wasn't necessarily the case. It was some people that were in their beginning stages, but the ones that were at the beginning stages were D1 athlete caliber, learning how to play rugby. And you know what I'm saying? Them the guys that are like just starting out rugby that happen to be around Life at that time. So in order for you to even be there, you had to have a certain level of intelligence, and you had to be able to do the most basic stuff right. And and the players held you to a standard. Not just the coaches, not just the players held you to a standard. And not just your club men's team players, but even the undergrad. If you making mistakes that you shouldn't make, you know about it. If you also, there was a level of sacrifice that goes into any successful team, right? I have sort of this like thought, this thought that I might turn into a dissertation if I become a doctor, which is like every championship team needs talent, either overwhelming or understood talent, meaning they understand each other, sacrifice. And that comes from the work you put in with that talent. So it's the people, it's the work that the people are willing to put in, and then it's the stuff you can't control, which I just quantify as luck.
Right.
And every Life team had those. Like every Life team had smart, strong, competent players, them the talent, and then the sacrifice. Every one of those players was willing to be 4 days a week, 5 days a week, weight room, put their body on the line, no questions asked when it's practice time, watching film, learning, growing, becoming better players. And then luck. So in the games, when stuff is going wrong, instead of that knock on bouncing off of a player's hands into their guy who walks in for a try, that guy knocks it on too, and then we steal the scrum. Or instead of that overthrown line out falling right into the hands of their guy to where they set up to go in and score, something happened where we get the ball back, or what I mean. It was one of those things. Like the standard
It worked out.
It worked out. The standard at life was you have a job, you do your job. If you don't do your job, we're going to tell you you're not doing your job, even if that means you're doing it in front of everybody, right?
Sheesh.
So it's been players who it was a player who we gave up a try at the end of a game that we already won. But that try gave the team we were playing like a less than 7-point loss bonus point.
Oh.
And in film, they put that play up and was like talking to the guy who made the mistake, like, what are you doing, bro? What are you doing? And it wasn't like what are you doing? Like, we got to be better than this, guys. It was like, now I want y'all to look at this play, and then they played it. That's soft. That's soft. Ain't no room here for that. You know what I'm saying? That's some bull, like all kind of like, you know what I'm saying? That dude was all kind of names or whatever. You know what I'm saying? And it was just like, if even I didn't make that mistake. I was on the other side of the field when that film happened. But it definitely told me, like, well, if that
don't do that,
I won't be the one making that mistake. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's one of those things. And then it's another thing. So that's the talent and the sacrifice part. But then there's a mix because it's life. Life used to have this thing where every Tuesday, the men's team and the undergrad team would compete against each other, right?
Okay.
That
talk about iron sharpening iron.
Oh my freaking God. Imagine some undergrad kid, 18-year-old, 19-year-old, right? Just trying to live his rugby life. Across from him in a scrimmage, it's eagle, should be an eagle, used to be an eagle,
right?
Under 20 in Ireland, should be an eagle, not quite good enough to be an eagle, but still too much to deal with. Then you go to the back line, the best eagle the USA has ever had.
Yep.
A dude that's impossible to tackle one-on-one. And then you get on, and then on the far side, it's Lance. Like, you know what I mean? That's me. And that's who some undergrad kid got to compete against, right? So you would get these situations where you're dealing with some undergrad 20-year-old who every week is going against the best team he's going to go against.
Yeah.
And then for the men's team playing the undergrad, we're going against maybe top 3 team we're going to compete against all year. We play against them every week in practice.
Yeah.
That is something that like ups the standard for everybody. And not to say that this is the case. This is just a theory. Relax. This is just a theory. But ever since the men and undergrads stopped competing against each other, or the players that came out of those groups competing against each other, life hasn't been the same since, at least the undergrad. Right?
I think there's a fair argument for that, because I do remember, especially in those times, because some of those life teams ended up coming to play LSU a bunch, and of course then even the Lindenwood teams, and you'd go like, how do you keep finding these guys? How are they so crisp on everything? But it would make sense. Like if you're going up against Cam Dolan every week in practice, like what are you about to do? Who's this college student about to be for you?
And it's the crazy part, right? You say Cam Dolan. At that time, I think that was just when he was going to Northampton or whatever, where he when he went to Europe. But at that time, he wasn't the scariest forward on Life's team.
That's the wild.
So imagine Cam Dolan is on the other side. You're gonna have to line up against Cam Dolan, but the dude next to him is actually bigger, faster, stronger than him.
Bruh.
You know what I'm saying? The dude next to him is actually more to deal with than Cam. Now, Cam is a player. He a player. I'm not knocking it. That ain't what I'm saying.
No, it speaks to the volume of the talent that they're dealing with over there.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? But that goes to show, like, and you know what I mean, it doesn't hurt the players that were at the, doesn't.
It's again, iron sharpening iron. Like that's why you do that.
Yeah.
So for you, then in that time period, you were in Atlanta for a year, correct? If I looked at the thing correctly, playing with Life for about a year.
No, I played with Life like 2.5 seasons.
2.5 seasons.
Yeah, July 2013 to like November 2015.
So what ended up like in that time period, which you guys definitely won at least 2 national championships within that period? Just one?
They stopped playing for them because they were a foregone conclusion. If we was in the national tournament, we was gonna win it. So they was like, it's not worth the trip.
Okay, that's even a mindset, even in it of itself.
How about this? Here goes some deep secrets from the past. Y'all ready?
Let's go.
There was a time when the ARP first started. The ARP now is beautiful, right? It evolved into this beautiful thing, got academy teams. At one point, it was the ARP, and then the Pacific had their own thing. You remember the PRP
or something like that?
Remember that? Well, it was agreed upon when the ARP was created that the winner of each would play against each other. Right?
I remember.
At the time, Life had won the ARP, and the winners of the other side, I'm not going to say who. If you look at the years, you probably can figure it out. But they pretty much saw that they was going to play Life. It was like, nah, we ain't got the team to compete with y'all. So we didn't play that head-up mixer that we were supposed to play. So this is telling you how good this Life team is. Like it was this is another way I can say it. We won 1 national title when I was there. But my entire time playing for Life University, I only lost 1 game, and that was to the USA team.
Yeah.
Nobody else were really even close.
And that game was close too. Yeah, that wasn't even like a strong. That was a close game, if I remember.
I think we lost by 10, and we gave up a try with like 8 minutes left. So I think it was like a 4-point game.
Yeah.
And then we lost by like 11. It was something like that.
Yeah.
And that was a game. And there was a bunch of World Cup players that were on that team that was like having to deal with us. And it was, man, that was so much fun.
Man, so in that time period, in that 2.5 years, like how does that change your entire rugby? Because like I said, Davenport before you said solidified you as it being in your identity. What does Life put into you after this 2.5 seasons?
Check out part 2 of this episode.